it's time to welcome back the Retro Racing Managers League Grand Prix World Championship on Microprose Grand Prix 2. It's the 1990 Portuguese Grand Prix now, the 13th round of the 16 race championship as we get to the crucial title fight stage of the season. Jake Sanson here as we prepare for action in the GoBobby.UK pre-qualifying race. Of course, as always, the top 3 teams past the finish line will progress through to the Portuguese Grand Prix, and it is going to be a very exciting battle. Already we have some intrigue and drama from the qualifying session as Minardi are back where they belong towards the front end of the field. It's Martin Brundle who grabbed pole position, only just ahead of Michael Schumacher's Reynard, JJ Leto in the Monteverde Onyx, and Mark Blundell in the Lego Acela in a brilliant 4th place. Eric Bernard in the second Monteverde lines up in 5th alongside Okio Katayama. Pierluigi Martini's Minardi is 7th, and then it's Bruno Giacomelli in the Lola in 8th place. Martin Donnelly in the Eurobrunners alongside Alessandro Zanardi in the Lego Acela. Then the 2 Delaras, Johnny Herbert and Damon Hill together on row 6. Aguri Suzuki is alongside Bertrand Gachot. Lola versus Coloni. Piercarlo Ginzani in the Zack Speed is alongside Eddie Irvine in the Real. And then it's Paul Warwick in the newly rebranded Apple Racing Porsche. And Paul Tracy, his teammate. Gabriele Tarquini is right up in 19th in the AGS alongside Joachim Winkelhock in the second of the Zack Speeds. Christian Fittipaldi puts the life alongside Roland Ratzenberger's Reynard. Juan Fangio the second in the Eurobrunners alongside Roberto Guerrero in the AGS, with Willie T. Ribbs and Alan McNish really struggling to get to grips with this Estoril circuit. So the cars are ready in position. It's a bright sunny day here in Estoril. And of course, as we always know, it is the top 3 teams past the post that will get us into the Grand Prix. So Martin Brundle lines up in pole position. The man confirmed at Benetton Porsche for 1991. But the red lights are on. Let's see how we get racing. It's green and go! And so Martin Brundle blasts away from the grid. Michael Schumacher trying to get a better start, which he already has done. So Schumacher makes a great start down to the first corner. And it looks as though the Reynard is going to have no problem at all taking the lead. He chops across Eric Bernard, who's made a terrific start. And the fast first 2 corners have given us plenty to be going on with as the Portuguese Grand Prix Estoril qualifying session, or pre-qualifying I should say, pre-qualifying race begins. It's Schumacher, Bernard, Leto, Brundle, Blundell, the 2 Benetton teammates for next year, Katayama, Giacomelli, Martini, Herbert, Donnelly and Alex Zanardi. So, fabulous start to proceedings, and already it's a brilliant start for Michael Schumacher in the Reynard, who has taken an early advantage and leads the way here at Estoril. Of course, for those who are tuning in for the first time or perhaps need a refresher, the pre-qualifying race has a mandatory pit stop that they can take at any point after the pit window opens. That's JJ Leto who makes the move on Eric Bernard. So he gets through. Brundle is still there in 4th place in the Minardi, so the team's still looking good to qualify. It's the first 3 teams past the post. Now, Michael Schumacher in the Reynard really has hit a wave of confidence since his couple of occasions on the Formula 1 grid, and he really is storming the way. No wonder Ferrari have snapped him up for 1991 alongside Nigel Mansell. The 21-year-old is already showing his credence as a future star in the making, and Martini is making his bid to get on the inside of Bruno Giacomelli. And it looks like Okio Katayama's having a crack at Mark Blundell as well, but this is a very fast first corner. You need to know that you're going to make that overtaking move stick. Martini slots in behind Giacomelli as Bernard is now under pressure from the other Minardi. That's Martin Brundle trying to get himself back into the front of the field, with Tarquini towards the back of the field, squabbling away with Alan McNish. But this is one heck of a fast circuit, the Estoril racetrack, and it's very popular amongst the teams. And it's almost certain that this circuit will be back on the Grand Prix calendar for 1991. There has been a couple of meetings amongst the Retro Racing Managers League to make the championship a more world-based championship, because there are still a few territories that are not really included as part of the world calendar, including Africa. So for the 1992 World Championship, there could be a rotating African Grand Prix. Obviously, Kyalami has just completed its rebuild. But there are a few other African circuits that could well potentially get the chance to be part of Grand Prix racing, so it's something that the teams are going to be voting on season to season as to which circuits join the calendar. There is set to be a European Grand Prix where several circuits will get the chance to be on the calendar in various countries of Europe that might not necessarily get a Grand Prix. As Schumacher completes the second lap ahead of Leto, Bernard, Brundle, Katayama, Blundell. There's also going to be a Grand Prix of the Americas, which is in addition to the United States Grand Prix, which will just simply be called the USGP. But the Grand Prix of the Americas is for countries outside of the United States or Canada. that could host its own Grand Prix. Brazil is going to maintain a place on the calendar, we're told, as Roberto Guerrero comes into the pits. He's got an electrical problem, so the AGS, having had a much better weekend in terms of its raw one-lap pace from qualifying, rather sadly, Roberto Guerrero has an electrical problem and has brought the car back into the pits. So they're going to have to reset the engine, and he'll probably whack in a heavy fuel load to that AGS in order to bring it home without having to make another pit stop. But Schumacher is in front of Leto, Bernard, Brundle, Katayama and Blundell, with Giacomelli in 7th from Martini, Herbert and Donnelly, as JJ Leto tries to get his move on Michael Schumacher there through the right-hander, and he's not quite close enough to make it stick. So Leto tries again, but he is trying to gain a bit of ground on Michael Schumacher if he gets an opportunity. The Monteverdi is going to come with a lot more backing in 1991. The team has managed to get some wealth of sponsors on board for next year, I'm told. Here is Pierluigi Martini having another go on Bruno Giacomelli into lap 4. He's going to have to really commit to the move. Blundell can't quite make it stick on Katayama, and Martini has to bail out of the move on Giacomelli in the Lola. Now, we're told that there is going to be a split between Lola and the French race team Larousse that currently operates it. And that's not going to be part of the Grand Prix grid in 1991, Larousse, although they are hoping to come back again in 1992. And we're hearing rumours that they're going to be trying to unite with the French car company Venturi. So it could be Venturi Larousse for 1992 in addition to Lola. So the two teams are parting ways for the 1991 season. Lola will go it alone with its own independent squad as the car builder is going to be captained in Grand Prix racing in 1991 by Tom Cairns, who is currently at the helm of the Life team, although the Life team is not likely to return in 1991. So Eric Bernard doing a grand job in 3rd position. There's Mark Blundell in trouble. A puncture. Now, can he make it back to the pits? That's going to be crucial because Mark Blundell in the Lego Acela, no, he can't make it. The car is too damaged. So I'm afraid Mark Blundell is the first retirement of this pre-qualifying race. And Piercarlo Ghinzani out of the race as well by the look of it. Now, what's happened to Ghinzani? Oh, he's had a spin and he's hit the barrier. Oh, and he's been hit by one of the Porsches. Oh my goodness. In fact, both Porsches have gone off the road there. What a disaster. And that's one Porsche out of the race as well. We need to have a look at this again. So Ghinzani has a spin and then gets clouted by a Porsche. Oh, goodness me. It's Paul Warwick who takes the brunt of it. So an absolute disaster for the team. We need to have another look at this because Ghinzani's out of the race. Let's watch. Look, Warwick misses his braking point. They both go off and Warwick is forced into the car. I think Tracy's out as well. So both Porsches are out of luck here because Ghinzani and Warwick go off together. This is on board with Tracy. Look, he can't avoid them. Oh dear, the Porsche team are out on the spot with their brilliant new Apple livery. They're not going to get the chance to showcase it much further into this Grand Prix. So we've got 4 retirements in one go. Blundell's out of the race, as we know. And now both the Porsches of Tracy and Warwick and Piercarlo Ghinzani's Zach Speed all out on the spot on lap 4. Well, that is absolutely disastrous for this Portuguese Grand Prix pre-qualifying session. That is the most retirements in one go that I think we've ever seen in pre-qualifying for these Grand Prix races. But it's certainly not what the Porsche team wanted to see. And Zach Speed and Lego Acela, who are going to be Lego Fondmetal next season, are now very much in dire jeopardy. But Porsche out of the race altogether. That's absolutely shocking bad luck for the Porsche team. And they've already had their fair share of it. But next year, of course, they're going to be merely an engine supplier. Although I have been told that this new deal that Porsche are carrying with Apple for the remainder of the season is actually going to continue on with the Benetton team in 1991. So you should see the Apple Computers branding on the Benettons next year as part of their new association with the Porsche engine that they will run in 1991. Schumacher continues on his way. Bernard under pressure from Martin Brundle. So Brundle's giving it as good as he can possibly get down the main straight. And Brundle's got the slipstream, but the thing is the Cosworth engine just doesn't seem to have the same grunt as the Monteverdi power unit. As Michael Schumacher in the Reynard with Renault engines is going strong. Now, Renault are going to be teaming up with Lotus again in 1991, but as a factory entrant. So, Lotus will run the main Renault units, although they will also run with Ligier next season and with Reynard once again. But it's great to see that the Reynard car is finally getting the results it deserves, having had a real struggle all season long. JJ Leto just locking the brake there a little bit as Fittipaldi chases after the Eurobrun. And that is the Eurobrun of Juan Fangio II, the nephew of the great Argentine legend. And now up the inside, that's Tarquini, trying to make his bid. A much better race from the AGS team, which are going to be rebranded as Holden next year and become an all-Australian outfit. Team boss Tristan Digby has won the rights to christen the team Holden Racing next year. So the Aussies are going to be in force. He's actually managed to capture the services of David Brabham for 1991, as well as the motorcycle world champion Wayne Gardner, who's going to make the switch to Grand Prix racing. A very interesting idea there. So a fabulous opportunity for the Australian team. Here's Martini having another go at Giacomelli, but again, he just doesn't seem to have the pace. Oh, and that's gearbox failure for Damon Hill. Damon Hill in the Dallara, I'm afraid, is going to bring the car to a stop at the first corner. So that's one Dallara down and out, and that is a real shame. So Damon Hill and the Dallara team very much compromised for their chances of getting into the Portuguese Grand Prix. Oh, goodness me! And that's gone very badly wrong as Damon Hill is not able to bring the car home, but he's struck by Fangio. Fangio II has nowhere to go, and the Eurobrun, I'm afraid, is out of the race as well. So a big problem for Damon Hill. Oh, and Martini's out of the race. Now that's a separate problem. So Martini's got gearbox failure. What a problem for the Minardi team. So Martini out of the race now as well. Goodness me, they are dropping like flies, faster than I've ever seen them drop before. But most of it is due to accident damage or all sorts of difficulties. Martini out of the race, though, as well, and that severely compromises the team, as Winkelhock there in the Zach Speed. They're going to have a complete rebrand, I'm told, for 1991 as part of their new association with BMW next season. The yellow flags are out, as we know. And Fangio... Oh, that's Gasho. Gasho has spun the Coloni. Now, what's happened there? Was it just driver error? We have to have a look at it. As he comes down into the... right-hander. Oh, yes, look, he just lost the back end. Goodness me, Bertrand Gachot spins the car, gets going again, though. So, fortunately for the Belgian, he manages to get back on the circuit just in front of Roland Ratzenberger in the Reynard. And Fangio II's car, obviously, is being removed from the circuit as Brundle, I should say, is trying again on Eric Bernard. Well, a very dramatic start to the race. We've already lost 7 cars. Both the Porsches, Warwick and Tracy, Ginzani in the Zach Speed, Blundel's Lego Osella, Damon Hill with a gearbox failure in the Dallara. Fangio had nowhere to go but into him. And Martini had mechanical failure. Oh, and Schumacher's going wide. Oh dear, a big lock-up for Michael Schumacher in the Reynard, and that's going to give JJ Leto plenty of momentum to try and close up on him. So that could have been very nasty indeed, but Schumacher continues to lead the race, but the Reynard is clearly struggling a little bit in the hands of Michael Schumacher. Whether he's pushed the tyres a little too hard or whether he just made a lapse in concentration, we'll have to see. But here's Eric Bernard. So Bernard having a solid race at the moment, and there's Ukyo Katayama in the other Coloni, the one that's actually up near the front. So far, it is still Reynard, Monteverdi and Minardi that are going to go through to the Grand Prix later. But a very tricky start to the race for many. 7 cars out of the race already, and this is only lap 8. So Schumacher, Leto, Bernard, Brundle, Katayama and Giacomelli ahead of Herbert. Oh, and that's Ratzenberger. Ratzenberger's gone off the road. Now, what happened there? Has he just pushed a little bit too hard? The back end, well, it's not in this corner. I think it's in the next corner. It just comes around. And he tries to make the move into the corner. Yes, look, he just overdrove the car. He just pushed it too hard, spins the back end of the Reynard, and now he will have to wait until the field goes by. And there's a gap in the traffic in order for him to get back on circuit. So Ratzenberger slips to 18th place in front of Roberto Guerrero, I'm afraid to say. Well, JJ Leto has not quite been able to get close enough to Michael Schumacher to make that ultimate move. And the Ferrari-bound driver is still enjoying a great run at the front of the field. Ratzenberger trying to get going again. Now he's trying to close up on the 2 cars battling up the road ahead of him. Willie T. Ribbs and Alan McNish, who have not really had the pace in qualifying, but are starting to get a little bit quicker in the race itself. But at Estoril, it is a very tough circuit here in Portugal. And the drivers really love it. It's a proper driver's challenge, but a very technical circuit as well. So Eric Bernard running in third position in front of Martin Brundle. Oh, and that's Ratzenberger locking up again. The Reynard locking up in the same place. I wonder if it's the way the car is set up that's hampering the Reynards at the moment. So JJ Leto still trying to reel in Michael Schumacher's Reynard. But it's Schumacher, Leto, Bernard. Oh, is that a moment for the Real of Eddie Irvine? Yeah, he just missed a break. Oh, and Irvine spins. Irvine spins it. Goodness me, just as we go on board with him. But he manages to get the car going again. Oh, and Winkelhock locks up. Goodness me. A lot of drivers really pushing hard. I guess they want a decent result at the end of the season, because we are getting into the latter stages of the Grand Prix season now. And these cars, as we know, are quite brutal and fragile. So Schumacher leads. Leto, Bernard, Brundle, Katayama, Giacomelli, Herbert, Zanardi, Donnelly and Suzuki. So the battle is really intense as they continue to drive through. Oh, McNish has to back out of the move there as Gasho misses his gear out of the out of turn 3, that is, into the left-hander, the hairpin at turn 4, and chasing after the Zach speed of Winkelhock. So Schumacher leads Leto by just under a second. Bernard and Brundle are still scrapping away for third place. Katayama has now stretched well clear of Giacomelli, with Herbert in 7th. Zanardi is now 8th. Donnelly in the Eurobrin is 9th. And Aguri Suzuki in the second Lola is in 10th position. So far, so good for Reynard. So far, so good for Monteverdi. Martin Brundle is flying the flag for Minardi in the hope that he can bring the car home to the finish. And he is pushing hard here on Eric Bernard. But again, the Cosworth engine just doesn't seem to have the gumption to overhaul the Monteverdi. They're going to continue with that car in 1991. Oh, and Tarquini loses the car. Well, that's a shame because Tarquini was doing such a good job up until that stage. But now he has spun the car, and I'm afraid Ratzenberger's going to go through. So now the AGSs find themselves down at the back of the field again. That's unfortunate. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why the team is deciding that Gabriele Tarquini will have to sit on the sidelines next year as test driver to make way for David Brabham and Wayne Gardner. We're on board with Eric Bernard, who is being pushed here. Ah, now that's, is that a slowing Lola? I think we've got a slowing Lola. Oh, well, we've got a gearbox failure for Tarquini. That must be why he spun, because he must have missed a gearbox. Giacomelli's in trouble. He's got a loose wheel. Oh, dear. A loose wheel for Giacomelli, and that's the reason why he's slowing. You can see it there on the left rear. So a loose wheel, unfortunately, for Bruno Giacomelli, and I think, just to add insult to injury, he found himself at the marshal's post, and he actually damaged the car trying to slow it down. Yes, indeed, he did. So Bruno Giacomelli, I'm afraid to say, is out of the pre-qualifying session for the Portuguese Grand Prix. So that's 2 more retirements. It's Giacomelli and Tarquini. So Tarquini is in trouble now as well. You can see a gearbox failure as he tries to bring the car back to the pits, but he's never going to make it. He's only just passed the start-finish straight. So his teammate Roberto Guerrero passes the scene. And, well, Portugal really is taking its toll on the competitors here. We've only got 17 cars left. So a very interesting situation now as the Grand Prix continues, although admittedly 3 of those cars, the 2 Porsches and Piercarlo Ginzani, were all put out by a rare accident. And it doesn't happen very often, but it certainly wiped 3 cars out of the race in one fell swoop. Here's Gasho having another crack at Winkelhock, although this time it's for 11th position, not 12th, because of the retirement of Giacomelli. So Bertrand Gasho having a look. There's Leto in the Monteverdi, 2nd place still, as Fittipaldi dives through. Oh, goodness me, the Brazilian was very lucky there. He just ran very wide indeed through turn 2. If you have an accident there, it's usually a fairly hefty one. So he gets away with that one without too many dramas. But Eric Bernard is still trying to shake off the attentions of Martin Brundle. Brundle has another go at the Frenchman. Eric Bernard, who has very much impressed the field this season, he's going to be joining the Ligier Renault team next year. So Martin Brundle looking a lot closer to Bernard than he has in previous laps, with Leto now dropping to a 2.5 back. Well, let's have another look on board his teammate. Here's Bernard. Brundle keeps trying. In the slipstream, the car is faster. But unfortunately, the second he pulls out of the draft, all he's got is dirty air. So he's not able to maximise the advantage that he pulls down the main straight. But we know that the Minardi has got good mechanical grip. And that's what puts it up at the front. At racetracks like Monza and Spa, it has been severely compromised. But here at Estoril, where the setup of the car and the grip of the car is actually very important, they've been able to maximise every opportunity given. Now here's McNish riding behind the American Willie T. Ribbs, who will join BMW next year. Whoops, that's a mistake for Aguri Suzuki. So the Japanese driver, part of the Lola LaRousse team, although those two names, as we've already mentioned, are splitting and parting ways for 1991. LaRousse will focus its attentions on Formula 3000 in 1991 prior to a return for 1992. That's what they're saying. Oh, and that's Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi in trouble. Now, what's happened there? Gearbox again for the life. It's had a very difficult season in terms of its reliability, as Fittipaldi just about gets out of the way of Ribbs and McNish. So that is Christian Fittipaldi's chances of bagging another point in the Go Bobbit at UK Cup well and truly over, I'm afraid. So Fittipaldi is out of the race. And so the Grand Prix continues, but the battle is obviously very intense indeed as the competition continues. Now here's Schumacher. We're coming close to the first pit stop window. Now the pit stops are set to start at about lap 15, I'm told, for this pre-qualifying session. In the background behind Katayama, we've now got Zanardi pitching to get past Johnny Herbert. But again, the car just isn't quite fast enough on it under its own steam compared to the Ferrari engine of the Dallara. And the Dallara team will carry Ferrari engines again into 1991. And the black, red and white of the Converse colours, very impressive there. It's kind of half Dallara, half Converse. And it's become a very popular car in the paddock. Team boss Emma Featherstone, very much enamoured of the car's design. Here's Michael Schumacher. It won't be long before we see the last of the Cadbury's Reynard before they pick up sponsorship from McDonald's in 1991. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the cars will look like, but they won't have Michael Schumacher on the driving strength anymore, because he is off to Ferrari as the number 2 driver, which is a big gamble for team boss Chris Cavani, but he's seen enough from pre-qualifying. And young Michael Schumacher, 21 years of age, to be impressed with what he can do. Oh, that's a spin in front. That's Herbert. Herbert spins the Dallara in front of Zanardi, manages to get the car going again. But that's a big moment in this race as we watch again and ride on board with Johnny Herbert. And it's through this right-hander. It's caught out a few people. Whoops. And how on earth did Zanardi manage to avoid hitting him? So, well responded there from Zanardi. And that is a very close call indeed. So Johnny Herbert could have ended up out of the race there, as could Zanardi. But both drivers managed to avoid contact as the race continues. Bernard has managed to pull out almost a second now on Martin Brundle, so that eases the pressure on the Monteverdi. But Katayama is 5th, Zanardi now 6th ahead of Herbert, Donnelly, Suzuki and Eddie Irvine in the Real. And he is joining the new Zepter Jordan Ferrari team for 1991. And they are going to run in a very garish yellow and black, I'm told, for 1991. That's going to be interesting. So JJ Leto running in 2nd position at the moment in the Monteverdi. The pit stops are where this race is going to be decided as far as the drivers are concerned. And of course, points make prizes, but there are going to be no points on the board for Pierluigi Martini, who's already out of the race in the Minardi. And so he's not going to improve on his 100 points score, which is actually more points in the Go Bobbit at UK Cup than is currently being held by the championship leader in the Grand Prix World Championship, which is a very nice statistic for Martini. But he's scored more Go Bobbit at UK Cup points than the drivers have in the World Championship. So, a fascinating scenario and a great situation brewing now as the drivers are getting ready for their first pit stops. And the pit crews are starting to come out now. They are starting to put themselves into position, ready for the first stops of the race. And Zanardi is the first one in. So Zanardi is actually the first one to come in. Let's pick him up in the pit lane. There he is. So the Lego Osella crew. And Irvine is coming into the pits as well in the Real. So this should give us a bit of an indication as to how much time the drivers will be spending in the pits. It's a quick stop, 8.2 seconds. So not bad at all from the two drivers in the pits. I was going to say 2, but now it's 3 because Alan McNish is in the pits as well. So the competitors doing a fine job at this moment in time. But in the Go Bobbin at UK Cup, there's not going to be a change of leader, but there certainly could be a bit of a gain. But it's not going to be from Giacomelli. It's going to be from the Japanese driver Ukyo Katayama, who's currently in 5th place. He could move into 2nd in the standings. But JJ Leto has a good chance of moving into 2nd in the standings as well now, because he is in 5th in the points and he's currently in 2nd in the race. So Donnelly, they're in 7th place, doing a reasonable job. Brundle's got a good chance to move up a few places, as does Michael Schumacher, of course. He could even go as high as 4th in the Drivers' Championship, Michael Schumacher, with this victory, if he keeps hold of it. So, a brilliant performance and a great display. And this is really the indication as to why Ferrari have decided to bank on the young German. Here comes Donnelly, up the inside of Johnny Herbert. No way, that's not going to work. Both drivers were tipped to be racing for Lotus in 1991 at one stage, but Lotus have decided to go in a different direction. I think communications broke down with a couple of the teams that they were interested in pursuing. So they ended up having to sign a couple of drivers perhaps that might not have been first choice. Derek Warwick was definitely first choice. They wanted to keep him on for the 1991 season, but Andrea De Cesaris has decided to become a team leader, and he will join the San Carlo Coloni team, very much at the request of his sponsors. Michael Schumacher leads the way, though. 2.4 ahead of JJ Leto at the Lotus team, I should point out. Next year, it's going to be Derek Warwick and Michele Alboreto, another Italian. So that'll be interesting to see how they go. Whoops! That's Bertrand Gachot. So Gachot in the Coloni has spun, I'm afraid, and it has now wedged his car into the gravel trap. Now, because he's in the gravel trap, he can take his time to get out again. His teammate Katayama is in 5th position at this moment. But I'm afraid that gravel trap there is very deep indeed. I'm not entirely sure Gachot is going to be able to get out of it. So he's going to have to try his best. But Gachot has now been lapped by race leader Michael Schumacher. He is stuck there in position. But it's now all going to be about whether he can actually get moving again. He's made a little bit of progress. But Gachot is, without a shadow of a doubt, going to fall to the back of the grid now behind Roberto Guerrero. He's in 16th place. And essentially now he's got to hope that his teammate Ukyo Katayama is going to have a chance of qualifying for the Grand Prix, because from Gachot's point of view, he's not got any hope at all, as he's still there in position. The entire field is lapping him now. So there is Gachot, stuck in the gravel trap at turn 4. There goes the Real of Eddie Irvine to lap him. And then there goes Zanardi. Oh, sorry, that was Ribbs and Zanardi. Irvine should go through any moment now. And I'm afraid Bertrand Gachot has now lost an entire lap stuck in that pit. And the Schumacher is in the pits. Schumacher is in the pits. That's his pit stop. And Leto and Brundle come in at the same time. So JJ Leto coming in for his pit stop. Now, we should see Schumacher go back through past him as he exits the pits. Brundle has parked his Minardi just behind us as well. And there was a quicker pit stop from from Monteverdi. But Schumacher is only just in front. So, the Reynard team were fortunate there, because the Monteverdi team had to wait for Schumacher to leave the pits. So that was a critical moment in the race, but Leto and the Monteverdi team could have jumped the race leaders. Gachot has now got the car going, has he? Well, Brundle comes in from P4. And he has rejoined ahead of Katayama. But out onto the circuit again goes Bertrand Gachot. He will continue, but he is now a full lap down on the entirety of the field. In fact, I think he might even be 2 laps down. He is indeed. So Gachot, having lost 2 laps, is now able to continue in the Portuguese Grand Prix pre-qualifying session once again. Willie T. Ribbs is in the pits for his scheduled mandatory stop. And that will be Alan McNish going through. And that's Aguri Suzuki locking up there at the hairpin in a similar fashion to what we saw from several drivers, including Michael Schumacher. Oh, and it's a gearbox problem for him as well. That's why he locked up. So Suzuki struggling to get the gearbox to work. Eric Bernard comes into the pits from the lead, but I can tell you that Lola will not be getting into the race in 1990 for the Portuguese Grand Prix. So Aguri Suzuki pulls the Lola off the circuit with gearbox failure. What a shame. And the field now drops to 15. So, big problems for Aguri Suzuki. Now, let's go back to the front end of the field. where we should have Schumacher retaking the lead. Yes, we do. Leto in second, and Brundle is through to third. Brundle jumps Eric Bernard in the pit stops, so that's great news for Minardi, as Martin Brundle now finds himself in third position. Well, that's going to put the smile on Michael Gillespie's face, as the Minardi team have jumped Eric Bernard, and now they've got a great chance of going after race victory. So Leto is about 1.6 seconds back. Brundle is only 3.6 seconds back. So Brundle has actually made a big impression in this middle stint. Now we're starting to realise why Benetton decided to go for Brundle and his experience in 1991. And he will join the Benetton squad next season alongside the Lego Acela driver for this year, Mark Blundell. Now, Roland Ratzenberger has caught up to Alan McNish. We should see a nice little battle between these two for 11th place as JJ Leto in the Monteverde starts to close on Schumacher, and that's Irvine getting it slightly wrong in the Real as he tries to close up on Johnny Herbert in 8th position. 10th place at the moment is Joe Winkelhock in the Zach Speed, which at one point was the fastest car in the field, but of late it hasn't really had the momentum to keep that sort of place. Michael Schumacher sets the fastest lap of the race of 1:18.6 as he pursues victory in another pre-qualifying race. He really has come good at the end of the season. So Leto running in second place, Martin Brundle in third, Bernard in fourth, Katayama is fifth, Zanardi in sixth position, and Martin Donnelly is in seventh place ahead of Johnny Herbert. Then it's Irvine and Winkelhock, but Alan McNish continues on his way now as well. Here's Michael Schumacher out in first position, doing a grand job. And Michael Schumacher and the Reynard team really have hit their stride in the second half of this season. Team boss Will Knight with plenty of confidence now heading to the Ligier team as their team boss next season, with the improvements of the Reynard car definitely working well in this second half of the season. There is Ratzenberger battling with Alan McNish. Ratzenberger having made his way through into 11th position, just one place out of the points in the Go Bobbit UK Cup in this pre-qualifying category. As we mentioned before, only the top 3 teams past the finish will progress through to the Grand Prix itself, and only the drivers score points in these races. The teams do not. There's Michael Schumacher, another new fastest lap, a 1:18.6 for Schumacher. He is totally ready to be in the top 10 of Formula 1 teams, and he will join Ferrari alongside Nigel Mansell next year. Goodness knows what he can do in this Scuderia. But certainly at the moment, a brilliant performance and a great display from the young German, as McNish tries to close up again on Ratzenberger, and he's in danger of losing ground to the American star Willie T. Ribbs, who will join the BMW testing program next year. So things could get very interesting there. Schumacher continues on his way in the Reynard. He's actually now closing up on Roberto Guerrero in the AGS to lap the Colombian. And I believe Guerrero has actually been snapped up by Benetton next year as part of their testing program. Eddie Irvine for the Real team. He's going to be joining Jordan next year with his good mate Eddie Jordan, and obviously team principal will be Topher Smith, who will move from the very successful Williams team, who are currently second in the Constructors' Championship. So there's high hopes for Jordan. They could do very well indeed. Oh, is it Schumacher slowing? Schumacher slowing. Gearbox problems. Gearbox for Schumacher. Oh dear, he was dominating. And Michael Schumacher is out here in Estoril. And I'm afraid the Reynard team is now likely not to qualify for the Portuguese Grand Prix. What a shame as Michael Schumacher retires from the lead of this pre-qualifying race. That is devastating bad luck for the German. He throws his steering wheel over the wall and he's absolutely distraught with that. He has dominated proceedings. What this means, though, is that it puts Leto up into first position. The Monteverde looking good for another win. Brundle is now second in the Minardi, looking good. And Bernard is third. That means that Coloni could well get into the Grand Prix after all, as Ukyo Katayama is now in fourth position ahead of the Lego Acela of Alessandro Zanardi. Martin Donnelly in the Eurobrun is going well. As in addition, he's in sixth position. We're on lap 23 of 35. So when Leto crosses the line to start the next lap, there will only be 12 to go. And they are short laps here. They're only about 1 minute 18 seconds in pre-qualifying. So Leto doing well here in front of Martin Brundle. Eric Bernard is next up, then Ukyo Katayama and Alessandro Zanardi, Donnelly, Herbert, Irvine, Winkelhock and Ratzenberger. And there are just 14 cars left now in this pre-qualifying encounter at Estoril. It's been a high race of attrition here this time in Portugal. Oh, goodness me. Gasho pushing very hard there as he tries to get himself back into contention. He's a lap down from Guerrero, so I wouldn't be pushing too hard if I was Gasho, but he might be very happy to learn that Katayama is in 4th position. So the Coloni team is going to have a new principal for 1991, and that is going to be Lewis Bassindale, who will take the helm of the Italian team. So it's going to be a fascinating situation for the competitors as they continue on their march. But the battle raging in fine performance at the moment from the teams. And so the competition is going to be very strong indeed for the drivers as they continue to come through. Let's have a look at some of the other graphics on the cars. You can see on board here with JJ Leto as to what gear he is currently in. And obviously the engine revs per minute, you can see what the speed is doing there as well. Some fascinating information there from the competitors. We're looking at the lap times now of the different competitors in the squad out on the field as they come through. There is Leto from Brundle and Bernard. And this gives us a fascinating look at who is actually going fastest at the moment. Eric Bernard is now currently the fastest driver out on circuit. So a thrilling opportunity and a great battle for Martin Brundle to move his way further forward. And he is obviously going to try and take full advantage of this opportunity. So the battle continues on its way. But JJ Leto leads here at Estoril. Brundle second. Third is Eric Bernard, although he is catching the British driver at this moment in time. And you can see just how much he is. That 0.3 of a second is now the gap. And we're looking at the top 6 drivers in terms of fastest lap times there as well. You can make out there. Oh, that's Roberto Guerrero running wide. A little bit of a moment there from his point of view. There's the full coverage distance of the drivers as we have 11 laps to go here at the Portuguese Grand Prix pre-qualifying session here at Estoril. And you can see the gap between the drivers as Bernard tries to close up on Martin Brundle. There's JJ Leto across the line. A very fast lap indeed from Bernard. Leto is currently now the fastest man on racetrack. Katayama in the Coloni still doing a fine job in 4th position, and it looks as though the Italian Coloni team are going to make it through to the Portuguese Grand Prix. Donnelly is catching Zanardi. That's an interesting one to know. As the field continues, here is Zanardi in the Lego Acela. Oh, Alessandro, careful. You don't want to go off while in a position where he could potentially qualify for the Grand Prix. And it's been a fair while, actually, since an Acela managed to get into the Grand Prix. So they really don't want to spoil an opportunity when it could be very, very close indeed for the Lego Acela team to get their chance. Alessandro Zanardi and Mark Blundell have only actually managed to make it into a Grand Prix twice this season. And that was at the Brazilian Grand Prix at the second round of the championship and at the German Grand Prix in the mid-season. So from their point of view, it would be fantastic to get back into a Grand Prix again. But they're going to have to work very hard indeed to get there. That's the pace of the drivers out on circuit at the moment in terms of their lap times. As JJ Leto is currently lapping almost identical pace to Brundle and Bernard. And there is JJ Leto, who is out in front. Brundle, Bernard and Katayama. Those 4 drivers are guaranteed to get into the Grand Prix if they stay where they are. In addition to them will be Bertrand Gachot and Pierluigi Martini, their teammates who are already down the order or out of the race. So the field continues on its way as JJ Leto and the Monteverdi team look good to keep their cars on the racetrack. They're going to be teaming up with the Viant brand in 1991. The Cosworth engines they will take will be rebranded as Viant engines. And it'll be a fascinating Swiss and French influenced team for the 1991 season. It'll be very exciting to see how that team lines up. We're on lap 27 of 35. 9 laps to go, including this one, as Martin Brundle continues to try and shake off Eric Bernard. Now, interestingly, he's going to have a little bit of work to do. The car in front is Leto being held up by Bertrand Gachot. Now, this is interesting, because Gachot is obviously one of the teams that could well make the Grand Prix, because Ukyo Katayama is there in 4th place. I wonder if this is a bit of team strategy to help strengthen the Coloni team's chance of getting through to the Grand Prix, is in essence by keeping the leader a little bit off the pace. So Leto is going to make his bid up the inside of Gachot. No harm done, but certainly a bit of a hiccup as Martin Brundle in the Minardi now gets a little bit closer to JJ Leto. And hopefully this is the race where Martin Brundle gets some bad luck, because he's only actually finished 4 times all season in Grand Prix racing. He had a 7th place finish at the Monaco Grand Prix, which was very well deserved indeed. And so Martin Brundle knows how to get things done. But he's had so much bad luck in the Go Bobbied at UK Cup Free qualifying. The only decent finish he's had all year is again at Monaco when he was 3rd. So Brundle really has struggled to make an impression this year, despite his outright pace and experience. But Benetton have been keeping an eye on him all the way through the season. It's almost as if the Minardi team is, in essence, a mini junior wing of the Benetton team. Oh, Winkelhock slowing. Gearbox failure for Winkelhock now. Goodness me, it's a tough race on the gearbox, but I wouldn't have expected this many to fall. But I'm afraid that's the Zach Speed out of the race as well now. So Joachim Winkelhock retires from the pre-qualifying race, and that means both Zach Speeds are now out of the race. I think they're really looking forward to their partnership with BMW in 1991, because the Yamaha partnership, whilst it's had its moments, namely France and Britain, has not really been as successful in 1990, as they would have hoped for it to be. Now there's Gachot being lapped by Martin Brundle. No problems at all for the Minardi to get through. And now Gachot has a little mission on his hands here. He's trying to get himself back into a competitive position. But Gachot being lapped for the 2nd time. This is not really what the Belgian driver needed. And Gachot is actually going to be joining Ferrari next year as part of their testing operation. So, obviously his connections at Coloni definitely giving him a nice chance to get in there with Ferrari, as Leto gets held up by Guerrero. Now that's not good news for the Finn. That's going to give Brundle a really fast chance now off the final turn. And the AGS is in the slipstream. Can he actually get past? Well, Guerrero is actually being a little cheeky here. Bernard has gone through, 6 laps to go. And Leto is actually a little vulnerable here because Brundle has caught him up. Now here's Alessandro Zanardi. I wondered if we were looking at him because he's developing a problem. But it turns out he's not. Looks okay to me. Now behind us is not Katayama, although technically on paper it is. That is actually Bertrand Gachot, who has been lapped twice after his earlier spin. So Guerrero gets out of the way and lets Martin Brundle go. But Brundle is now just a whisker over a second behind JJ Leto, so this could get very spicy towards the end of the race. And Brundle is actually the fastest man on track. Leto getting held up on the previous lap and losing a massive bucket load of time. Donnelly is actually the 3rd fastest driver on track on this lap. So that is fascinating to behold and witness. So Leto going well. Brundle 2nd, Bernard 3rd, Katayama 4th, Zanardi 5th and Donnelly in 6th place. Then it's Herbert, Irvine, Ratzenberger and Ribbs. So Bernard trying to shake off the AGS, but on the straight, the AGS does seem to have a little bit of pace. Not enough to overhaul the Monteverdi. But certainly this is good development work, I guess, from Guerrero, who is going to be a test driver next year. So, from his point of view, this is all good knowledge, it's all good learning. Why not take the advantage while it's there to follow a slightly more competitive car? Brundle, 2nd place at the moment in the Minardi, 5 laps to go. And of course, as always, the top 3 teams will progress through to the Grand Prix. So this is still an important race for Brundle to finish on strong with the Glenfiddich Minardi team as he pursues a move to Benetton for 1991. which is a team he can pretty much call his own next year. Mark Blundell, the young upstart, will be his teammate, but I think it will be very much expected that Martin Brundle will be the leader of that team, replacing the outgoing 3-times world champion Nelson Piquet, despite his win in the Brazilian Grand Prix. Ever since then, Piquet and Benetton have really had a soured relationship through 1990. It hasn't worked out, and so Piquet is going to the very heavily South American influenced Arrows team for next year, as they're going to have a much more Latin flavour. There goes Katayama. Oh no, sorry, that's Gasho unlapping himself from Guerrero, technically speaking. 4 laps to go for JJ Leto as Guerrero and Gasho go side by side at a very tricky part of the course. They just about stay away from each other, but that could have got very nasty indeed, as Guerrero gets himself back past Gasho. So Brundle running in second place. Only 13 cars at the flag by the look of it. It's been a heavy race here for attrition and carnage as well, as Gasho makes his way on the inside again of Guerrero. A nice little last couple of laps battle here as Gasho unlaps himself from Guerrero. Guerrero determined that he's not going to let Gasho unlap himself, as we watch Alan McNish in the life, just 1 place away from points. And we're going to see a very interesting development for Alan McNish next season, when the young Scot continues his development as a driver and he joins the Coloni team. Apparently he is going to be their test driver, as Roberto Moreno, the Brazilian, makes a welcome return from the world of Indy cars. He's been there through the 1990 season. And that's Eddie Irvine locking up in the Real. But the upcoming Jordan star is going to be moving his way to the team with Ferrari power. He's very excited about it. And he's already been out testing, I've been told. So the team have already got their hands on the new Jordan 911. Although I'm told that that car is going to have a change of name, because Porsche don't seem particularly happy. That's Zanardi! Zanardi with an engine failure. Oh, that's such a shame. So the Lego Acela, that had a really good chance of qualifying in this race, has had a water leak. I do apologise, a water leak at the very end of this pre-qualifying race, and that really has summed up Alessandro Zanardi's season, in all honesty, as Irvine passes the scene of the Lego Acela as it parks up and joins Mark Blundell on the sidelines. What a shame. Lego Acela really have had not a lot of joy at all in this 1990 season, in the hope that 1991 will go a lot better for them. So the car is removed from the circuit, and there is Ratzenberger now in 8th position as he passes the scene of Zanardi's demise. Ribbs is up to 9th and McNish is up to 10th, with only Guerrero and Gasho still running around them. One of the drives of this race has got to be from Martin Brundle. He's been absolutely terrific there in second place. Managed to get the jump on Bernard through the pit stops, and he has sustained the pace in that Minardi, unlocking the true speed and potential of it in second place. We're on the penultimate lap. So Martin Brundle doing a grand job. Eric Bernard in 3rd, Katayama in 4th place, and it looks as though it's going to be Monteverde, Minardi and Coloni that progress into the Portuguese Grand Prix here at Estoril. And what a race that's going to be, because we've obviously got all of the drivers towards the front end of the field battling away for the victories, but we're also going to see the drivers here in the pre-qualifying session trying to scrabble home a point or two, and that's always really one of the more interesting factors of this 1990 Grand Prix season. Only a handful of teams have managed to do so through the course of the 1990 season, behind the top 10 teams that have all scored a consistent number of points now. We hadn't said that about Ferrari mid-season, but now they are 8th in the Constructors' Championship and trying to move further forward after a terrible year. And Willie T. Ribbs is in the pits. What's happened to the American? I'm not quite sure what happened there. Oh, he had a loose wheel. He was lucky to get that back to the pits, actually. So a loose wheel for Willie T. Ribbs. That means that's going to cost him a chance of finishing in the top 10, I do believe, because Roberto Guerrero in the AGS is going to go through and take that. Now, that is actually fairly good news for Guerrero and the team at AGS, because I'm fairly sure they have yet to score points in the Go Bob It at UK Cup. Let me double check. But I'm fairly sure that Tarquini hasn't scored a point. Oh, no, sorry, he has. He has had an 8th place finish. I do apologise. Guerrero has not yet, though, so he's up to 10th place. So we're on the last lap. And Eric Bernard is in 3rd position, 4 seconds back from the lead. And behind his teammate, JJ Leto, who is going to seal a brilliant victory. And this will, of course, be not the first time that JJ Leto has run at the front in the Go Bobbit UK Cup. In fact, it's going to be his 2nd win in a row after winning at Italy last time out at Monza. So Leto is going to take his 2nd win. That's 30 points he has been able to score from the last 2 races in his Go Bobbit UK Cup campaign. A much improved turnaround from the Monteverde squad at the end of the season. And they have plenty to be smiling about as out of the final turn comes JJ Leto, and it is a great result for him as he and the Monteverde team qualify for the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril. The checkered flag flies, JJ Leto wins, Martin Brundle is 2nd, Eric Bernard is 3rd, and behind them it will be Ukyo Katayama in the Coloni that comes through in 4th position. And that will be those 3 teams, Monteverde, Minardi and Coloni, that get into the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril. So congratulations to Senna Stoffmehl, to Michael Gillespie and Monteverde team boss David Junt. They are the ones that managed to get into the Portuguese Grand Prix of 1990. And a fabulous race from Martin Brundle in 2nd place, just 2 seconds back from the very quick Monteverde of JJ Leto. Bernard bringing the car home 3rd as well. Katayama in 4th place. A good drive from Martin Donnelly in the Eurobrunn. He's now 5th. Johnny Herbert, Eddie Irvine, Roland Ratzenberger, Alan McNish and Roberto Guerrero. Great performances from them. So Guerrero scores his 1st point in the Go Bobbit UK Cup, in fact. And that means that there are only a handful of drivers that have not managed to score points in the Go Bobbit UK Cup. And in fact, I can tell you that there are only 4 that have not managed to do so. They are Michael Andretti, Olivier Guillard, Roberto Moreno and Kathy Muller. So a fabulous performance then in the race. It is a victory for JJ Leto and Monteverde. Martin Brundle in 2nd from Eric Bernard and Ukyo Katayama. Martin Donnelly is 5th from Johnny Herbert. Then Eddie Irvine and Roland Ratzenberger, Alan McNish and Roberto Guerrero in the top 10. Then it's Willie T. Ribbs and Bertrand Gachot. Zanardi's retirement came 3 laps from the end, but he is still classified as a finisher. Joe Winkelhock in the Zack Speed had gearbox failure, as did Schumacher from the lead, Suzuki in the Lola and Fittipaldi in the Life. A loose wheel took Giacomelli out of the action. Tarquini and Martini also had gearbox failures, as did Damon Hill, with Fangio crashing into him. Blundell with a puncture, and then Tracy, Ginzani and Warwick wiped each other out on the same part of the circuit. A fascinating incident. And that could be looked into further. Schumacher gets the fastest lap, and that gives him plenty to build on into the next race of the championship at Jerez in Spain. But now we know the identities of the 3 teams that will progress through to the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril. They are Monteverde, Minardi and Coloni. Do join us for that. That race is coming up very shortly.